Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. So welcome back to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. Today we are talking about Louise Ja Ja, and I am so excited to learn about this woman because I have no idea who she is, and she has a super fun name.
She does have a very fun name. I kind of love it. But I kind of was like, is that really her last name? Because it's different at a museum, and we'll talk about that. So Louise Ja Ja was born July 1st, 1838 in the Duchy of Savoie. And she came from a very large family. She had to start working at a very early age because, with all those kids, there's a lot of mouths to feed. So as soon as she got a little bit older, the ripe age of 13, she had to start working. She got a job in the town that they lived in. And then at 15, she moved to Paris with her aunt and her cousin because she got a job at the Nouveau Heloise, which was a lingerie store.
I like it.
I know. And of course, I'm envisioning this is the 19th century Victoria's Secret.
Which is still probably sexier than what we have today.
Yeah. And it was probably there's lots of red lace. This is, these are my dreams, red lace and everything. And but then that's also it's named Eloise, like Abelard and Eloise. It just seems very strange, but they had a pretty spicy relationship. So maybe it was, I don't know. So she left there. And she started working at the Bon Marche. She worked at the candy counter. And while she was there, she met a gentleman that also worked for the store named Ernest Cognaq. And he was working he was a manager of another department, and they fell madly in love.
I like romance stories.
And I love that they had a candy counter because I remember even my grandma telling me of this department store that they'd go to, that they'd have a candy counter and they'd have all these different things that normally they don't have anymore in department stores. Mm-hmm. And I always have these visions of, ladies shopping with their white gloves on and all very fancy, that we don't get to have those things anymore. Can't have nice things.
I know. This is why we can't have nice things.
Can't have nice things. So the two of them got married on January 17th, 1872, and they decided they were going to open up their own store. So they opened up a small store that had been a former cafe on the corner of Rue du Pont Neuf and Rue de la Monnaie, and they named it La Samaritaine.
Oh, we know this place.
Yes, you do. So this small, still tiny shop that they had quickly expanded. At the time, Les Halles, the market was rapidly growing, getting bigger. This was, the age of when they started adding, Les Halles started as, they had a lot of they would have clothing and fabrics and stuff. It wasn't always just all food that we think that we know of what Les Halles was. So they had all sorts of stuff. So it also drew more people into living near there. And so their little tiny store was getting busier and busier all the time. So at that time, the block, this huge block where the store sits now, it was just this little tiny corner closer to Pont Neuf.
So interesting.
Yeah. So this Belgian architect, Frans Jourdain, he enlarged the store and he added all these different Art Nouveau touches to it in 1883. So they kept adding. At that time, they just kept adding and purchasing more of the block, more and more of the block. And then, every year or two, they would add on to it and add another building. And then they'd keep going and going and going. And so it stretched all the way to the Rue de Rivoli. It is this pretty, if you look on Google Maps and you look at literally the size of the footprint of it, it's huge still today. So they ended up doing all this. They ended up opening another store in 1917 on the Boulevard de Capucine. It was actually called Le Samaritaine Luxe. So it was all like a little bit more luxurious. He also kept part of his art collection there, which we'll talk about. But in 1933 is when it kind of encapsulated this whole entire block that was down by the bridge. So this time when they were setting all this up, this was like the heyday of department stores. So at that point there was, BHV, there was Bon Marche, the Galerie du Louvre, which is across from the Louvre. Now it's basically empty. There's like one person that remains in there. That's where our friend Kemi's dad had a gallery.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was also a pretty big department store. And now there's literally one lady that's holding out and staying in there, and the rest of it is empty. And of course, Printemps. So to stand out, they wanted to figure out a way to stand out against all these other ones. And so they did a bunch of different things that at that time stores weren't doing. So they opened a credit department. They offered people credit and also offered things marked at the same price. So whether they played by credit or cash, they all played the same price. They kept their prices very low. And when they were advertising for it, they kept them low so that people wouldn't come in there and haggle with them. They were getting like the lowest offered price.
Yeah.
They would have sales twice a year. And they also created a catalog and did a mail order and home delivery.
Wow, interesting.
I know, in the 19th century. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Is that like the first catalog?
No, I don't think it was the first catalog, but it goes back there. And, of course we envisioned, some like 2-inch thick Sears and Roebuck catalog that I've never seen when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But they ended up having changing rooms so people could try things on. These were things that nobody did. Nobody did these things at that time.
Oh, you couldn't even try things on.
You couldn't try things on. They wouldn't let you return things at that time, but they had made it so people could return things. They could exchange things. And so all of these things drew more and more shoppers to them. They gave their employees a 20% discount. And they also enforced this dress code. The men had to wear dark colors, and the women always had to wear black and white. People could not stand around chit-chatting or have their hands in their pockets.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And they also gave their employees profit sharing. So they did a lot of things that to help their employees, to bring, really good employees to come work for them, and also to keep the customers happy and kind of pull them away from the other stores. And it was like the place to shop, basically. And people would say, there was a slogan about, that you could only find it at Le Samaritaine. Like that's where they had everything.
So why did they close?
Well, I mean, this was early on. So, as with all those things, it changed over time. But they ended up creating other things for their employees. They created a fund that would help assist them with hospital bills if the employee didn't have insurance. They set up a maternity hospital. They had a retirement home for employees. They did childcare. They even had an orphanage that they set up. And they built in some apartment buildings that would house 500 different employees.
That's crazy. They were so advanced and they actually took care of their people.
Yeah, it's so advanced. And it's funny because I used to work for a large retailer in the Northwest, and all of those things, I was like, this sounds like, did they just go and copy their business model? Because these are all things that they would do.
They could have. They were like the originals.
They were the original. But they later on in September 3rd, 1906, she also ended up opening up a botanical garden, an alpine botanical garden in the Griff Valley near where she was born.
A botanical garden.
Yeah. So they were involved in a lot of different things. But the store, as we know, because it just reopened, the Samaritaine, the name came from a pump house that was on the Pont Neuf. And if you were on the Pont Neuf, you were on the right bank side and you started to cross the river. If you were on the downstream side, facing towards like the Orsay, there's all those little alcoves there. Well, right after the first alcove, there was this building built on stilts into the water. It was pretty good size. It was a pump house. It had two big wheels in it. And on the outside of it, it had a sculpture of the Samaritan and the well of Jacob and Jesus there. And so they called it the Le Samaritain.
Oh, that's where the name comes
That's
from.
where the name comes from. So it came from this pump house. At one point, very early on, before he even had the store, he set up in one of those little alcoves. He put this red umbrella over it, and he set up in one of those little alcoves, and he was selling things.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right next to it before he had the store. So it went back to the 17th century. Henry IV had commissioned it to provide more water for that area around the Louvre. It was designed by Jean Latour. The building stood there in the water on these stilts. And in it up above, he built an apartment into the building, and that's where he lived, which would be a pretty great place to live.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice one. But on the facade, that sculpture that they had, it was built at that time in 1712. It was redone again, and then again in 1771 by Soufflot, who was the one who built and designed the Pantheon in Paris. And they had added a clock on it, and then a little bell tower on the top that had one of the very large bells that was then later given to Saint Eustache Church.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. But in 1729, Louis XVI decided to decommission the project. The sculptures were removed. The National Guard moved in for a short period of time. And then in 1813, they destroyed the building because, as you know, it's no longer there.
Rude.
It was all taken down. But there's some actually really cool pictures of it. There's actually some paintings that are in the reopened Musée Carnavalet, the History of Paris Museum. So I will be going there shortly, and I'll be sure to take some pictures and share them with everybody so you can see the idea of what this looked like that was on the side of the bridge.
Very different, that's for sure.
Very different. So when they opened up their store that was on Rue du Capucine or Boulevard de Capucine, it included a lot of the couple's art collection that he started to gather. He was inspired by the Carnavalet to have them displayed because at that time, the museums of Paris, you would think because everything in Paris seems so old, the museums actually aren't that old. You had the Louvre originally opening actually during the Revolution, but, that was, the very late 18th century. So, these museums didn't go back actually that far when you think of it in the grand scheme of Paris timeline. So he was kind of inspired with like sharing this and showing off his art. But on December 27th, 1925, Mary Louise died. And Ernest was devastated. They'd never had any children. He basically focused on all of his collecting and then trained his great nephew, Gabriel Cognaq, to take over the business. He ended up dying on February 28th, 1928, and left his house and his art collection to the city of Paris.
Oh, that was nice of him.
Are you figuring out what the museum is?
No, I'm not that good.
So on January 4th, 1929, the Musée Cognaq, which is, they spell it Jay. This is why I was just like, wait, her name is Ja Ja, Jaja, and then somehow the museum is Cognaq Jay.
Yeah.
First, it opened in their former home. And it stayed that way for about 60 years. Their former home was not in very good shape. And so the city decided to close it down, and it closed in 1988. So, not that long ago. And then it reopened into the Hotel Donnan, which is where it is now. It is very close to actually the Carnavalet. It's in that little area. It's it's a small building. The Hotel Donnan was owned by, Maurice Denon, who basically had the land subdivided from the St. Catherine des Écoliers, and they ended up taking part of that land because at that point this convent just basically covered a huge area of the Marais that we know today. So they ended up taking over some of that. And they ended up having this house that was there. There's two different houses that they kind of joined together. And the Hotel Danon is now the Musée Cognaq, and it opened on December 18th, 1990.
What? I had no idea. This is so fascinating.
Yeah. So it's on 9 Rue Payen and 8 Rue Elzevir. And you could go there. It's very tiny. It's part of the Museum of Paris structure, so it's free to go see.
Like that?
Yeah, if there's a special exhibit, you could go in there and see. It's really interesting because when I went there was literally nobody there but like me and one security guard. You could walk through all of the different rooms. It's I love it because the floors really creak when you're walking. When you're the only one there, it's just so old. When they opened it in 1990, Christian Lacroix, the designer, he did the drapes and all of the rugs for it.
Oh, wow.
Really cool. But it's just a bunch of collection of small rooms. There's a bedroom that's very small that I think was her bedroom, or, it's filled with, some of the things from her bedroom. It wasn't the house they lived in, but it's very pink. Everything's pink.
I don't know how I feel about that. That could be a little exhausting.
It's pretty tiny. I mean, it's like a walk-in closet size bedroom. But in 1974, that's when they had bought this building, the city did, and then, restored it to what it is today. The paintings you could find in there's everything from our favorite, Vigée Lebrun. You have Francois Boucher, Maurice Canton de la Tour, Watteau, Rembrandt. They had a very huge collection. It's one of the largest collections of British art that you will even find in Paris, is there?
Well, that's not a surprise. They're not big fans of the British.
Yeah, there's an entire room of chinoiserie, which is all the Chinese inspired art and pottery, which is really cool. There's you walk all the way up to the top into the attic space. Is kind of a neat place for kids, but it's very warm.
Hot.
When I went up there because it was at the top. In the 1970s, people stopped going to the Samaritaine, and the family that owned it at the time sold it to LVMH in 2001.
Oh, so very recently, really.
Very recently, yeah. The store was closed in 2005. It was closed because of structural safety issues. So it was shut down because they said that, it was in pretty bad disrepair. And then it just reopened recently. It has a school in there. It has a very fancy hotel, and it has, you could go in there and shop again. In the lower levels that have, it's all very, LVMH is Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, which is like the largest luxury brand in the world. They own everything from, what the initials are to Clicquot. They own everything. So I've seen a lot of pictures of it online, and there's a whole area that's all set up dedicated to Clicquot. And they're selling, I'm sure, a majority of what the products that they actually own.
Yeah, I read a recent article about somebody who was really disappointed in it. I have not gone yet, even though I'm here all the time, but we'll have to go when you come and go check it out.
Yeah, I guess that there's like there's a line, of course, because of, COVID restrictions, they're probably limiting how many people could come in. But I have seen pictures and videos of people waiting in line for like an hour to go inside.
I'm not doing that.
No, it's stunning inside. I mean, they did so much work. It was really cool because in the last couple years, they had out on Facebook where they would do videos, like weekly videos of the progress inside and workmen. Inside of it, it has these beautiful iron railings that are all Art Nouveau, and you could look down, from the center of it. The center's open. And it has tile work and everything. It's absolutely gorgeous inside. So they were kind of really sharing the process of redoing that with people along the way. So it is definitely something you want to go and check out and see. I'm not so sure about that waiting in line business, though.
Yeah, I'm not waiting in line to go to a store. That's crazy.
Yeah, but there's the fancy hotel. I don't think that's. I think it's called Hotel Blanc. I think. I don't think it's open yet. I think it's open soon, and I wouldn't be surprised. I would hope to think that maybe they have some sort of fancy rooftop bar or something.
Well, we like that idea. I'm down
I know
for that.
we'll like that. We'd definitely like that to go check that out. But the store itself is gorgeous. So it's definitely probably something you definitely want to go check out and see. And their museum, the Musée Cognaq, is small and is definitely worth the visit. They're having a really cool exhibition right now called it's basically about the senses. And so they have like these Boucher and all these other very Rococo art that's very, it's a little on the sexy side, and it's all like, the senses and sensual and, feel and touch and all of these things. Their website for the museum is horrible. It looks like it was probably in the 1980s and it hasn't been updated since. So if you go to their website, don't expect to see, a version of some of the stuff you would see. It's not very well done. But it is it's very cool. I mean, you could go in there, and spend an hour and be in and out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And it is free. So I think I did it one day when I did a bunch of the museums, like you go to Archives, which is right around the corner from that, which is that beautiful set of buildings. And that actually it was the archives of the city of Paris. And you could actually go in there and visit. It's really gorgeous inside, and they actually have in this really cool case, the last letter that Marie Antoinette wrote to her sister-in-law in this really cool case. You can see.
That's wild. I want to see that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you could kind of make a whole day of it. There's a bunch of museums, small museums in that general area that you could go check out and visit.
This all sounds fantastic.
Yes, and the Carnavalet. But if you're going to go to the Carnavalet, little tip for you, make sure if you're going to be coming there the next few months, tickets are free, but you do have to book them online in advance. Book 2 different days, because since they open, including the first day they open, people had been waiting for 5 years for this place to reopen, and they went on strike the first day. And the workers did, and it didn't open that day that it was supposed to. So the people that had tickets to go that first day, I'm sure, were quite upset. They've since gone on strike a few more times. So anybody that's coming, especially if you're only going to be there for like a week in Paris, get 2 different days for tickets just to be safe, because you don't want to get all the way there and then have them go on strike and then you miss.
I was just there last week, and I'm trying to figure out what's changed, because it doesn't look very different from 5 years ago.
Well, I know that there's this staircase that they added and a bunch of, when I went like 2 weeks before they closed. So in 2016, and when I went there, it was basically like most of it was already closed off, because I was like, where is all this stuff? And they had, slowly been closing it off. So, yeah. I think that it'll be vastly different from when I saw it 5 years ago. But it's also pretty big. The upper floors are filled with a lot of stuff. So you definitely want to add, maybe having those tickets 2 days. You go both days if they're not on strike, to go break it up, to go check out everything. And if you go to museum like I do, you'll go like 5 times.
They're actually like crazy about your ticket too, because when I was walking around, like we had to show our ticket at like every section. I'm like, I'm in, guys. Like, and you just
that's
like
weird.
Well, they have a giant restaurant in the garden. The garden's really beautiful. The garden is bigger, but I guess they don't want people sneaking in from the restaurant to the museum. But I'm just like, calm down.
Yeah, it's kind of that. And then it's always like, I always try to remember, like when I go to museum, I put the ticket in like my back pocket, if I have, if I'm wearing something as a back pocket, because then when they ask you multiple times, I could easily pull it out. Because for some reason, if I put those things in like the pocket of my purse, somehow it like instantly disappears.
Be careful.
Yeah, or wear it around your neck.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, thank you, Claudine, for all that valuable information. And make sure you tune in to Claudine's virtual tours every Sunday. Check out her website, ClaudineHemingway.com, where she walks live with you in Paris and gives you all this fun history.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's Bleu, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.